these on? Good evening, everyone. I now call the City of West Hollywood Business License Commission to order. The meeting of the Business License Commission is now called to order, and we begin to acknowledge that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino, Tongva, and Gabrielino Keys people. Will you join me in standing for our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May you please get a roll call, Secretary?
Hi, good evening. For the record, our Vice Chair Eisenberg will be absent today. Commissioner Eng?
Here.
Commissioner Hang?
Here.
Commissioner Lowe?
Present.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Here.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Here.
Chair Villan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4, approval of agenda. This is to approve the agenda for tonight, March 7th, 2023. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, there's not.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
And seconded by Commissioner Eng. Can I please get a roll call?
Commissioner Eng?
Yes.
Commissioner Hang?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Aye.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Aye.
Chair Villan?
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Thank you. And our next item is approval of minutes from February 7th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes for February 7th, 2023? Thank you, Commissioner Eng. Mm-hmm.
I just have a change on bait stamp page 7 of the board packet. The last paragraph, it just says Eisenberg. I just, for grammatical purposes, Vice Chair Eisenberg.
Are there any other changes? Okay. If that's okay, let's please get another roll call.
Commissioner Eng? Commissioner Hang?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Aye.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Aye.
Chair Villan?
I was absent, so I'll abstain.
Abstain? Okay. The minutes are approved as amended with the note of abstain from Chair Villan.
Great, thank you. And our next item is public comment. Are there any speakers at this time for public comment?
We have none.
None, okay. We'll move on to the next item, number 7, our first public hearing. 7A, an application by J&P Consulting to modify the approved conditions in resolution number BLC 21-0011 to allow 3 new smoking areas to the existing cannabis edibles area for the business known as The Woods, located at 8271 Santa Monica Boulevard. I will now open the public hearing on item 7A. Secretary, how was this item noticed?
As required by law.
Does any commissioners have any disclosures to make? Okay. Um, so, is there a staff report? Let's get right to that.
Hi, good evening, Business License Commissioners. My name is Jessica Benitez, Code Enforcement Supervisor. With me this evening is Vito Adamaitis, our Neighborhood and Business Safety Manager, and also our Deputy City Attorney, Grace Yo. I'm just going to situate this right now. So, I'd like to highlight that the request before the Commission is to modify the approved smoking area of the woods, their consumption area. So I'd like to provide some background regarding this particular business before we begin. So the Woods is a cannabis establishment with a total of 3 cannabis business licenses in the adult use retail, delivery, and consumption edibles category. The business has changed throughout the years. They're DBA'd. They started with Budberry, Monica's House, and now The Woods. Also, there has been code changes, specifically on August 3rd, 2020, where the code was amended to allow cannabis edibles area to have a smoking area. On June 28th of 2021, the business took advantage of this and obtained an amendment to its original cannabis smoking area. The Business License Commission approved BLC 21-0001, BLC 21-0011, which granted the business to add 931 square foot of smoking area within 4 enclosed private rooms. On February 3rd, 2023, the business submitted a request to modify the existing smoking area that was approved back on June of 2021. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the site location. This is an aerial picture. As you can see, let me see, I move my cursor here. Olivia? And I apologize for that, but it seems that we have some technical issues here. But I'm showing on my screen in a rectangle the consumption area, and that's the subject location. To the front, you can see the Woods, which on the front you have Santa Monica Boulevard. To the east, you have Harper. To the north, you have Norton, and to the west, you have Sweetser. To east and west, you have commercial, and to the north, you have residential properties. The next slide shows it approves the site plan, which includes the 4 private rooms in pink on the screen as shown. But one of this room, which is located on the west side, which is closer to the lower left-hand side on my screen, was separated, and that was to accommodate a separate business. So in other words, it's no longer part of the consumption area. So why this issue, or why the removal did not come before the Business License Commission? It was because it was considered a de-intensification, and whenever you remove something that has no impacts to the community, there's no required for a business license approval. So the next slide, it will show now that area in black because it's not part of this business. This is what they're requesting now in 2023. Their consumption area, their operations started in October of 2022, and now in February, which is 4 or 5 months later, they're proposing to change this. And what they want to do is in the red boxes, they're labeled D1, D2, D3. Those are existing smoking areas that were approved in 2021. And then if you look at lower D4, that was part of the approval in 2021. So the request before you tonight is to approve D5, which would be essentially an enclosed private room on top of the D4, existing D4, and create 2 outdoor smoking areas on the lower portion, as you can see next to the black area. Those 2 areas are labeled D6 and D7. Those are the proposed before this commission. So what they want to do is in the D5, they want to do a fully enclosed smoking area just to mimic, in other words, that they're going to convert it from 1 story to a 2-story. Also, what they're proposing there, they're proposing to build a louvered roof on top of the smoking areas. In addition to that, they are proposing to install a air curtain between on the lower side where you see D7, because that is the entrance to the consumption, and then there's a hallway to the adult retail use. Thank you. So as part of the business license, just like we look at all the cannabis businesses, all cannabis businesses are conditioned that the odor cannot be detected outside of the property lease areas or anywhere adjacent to other businesses. In this case, they're next to their adult retail use. Therefore, the odor that is emitting from the consumption area cannot be detected from the adult retail. So because the consumption area is already operating, they've already installed an HVAC system with carbon filtrations, an air purification system, and what they're proposing is they're proposing to install similar system to these areas. In addition, like I mentioned, an air curtain and a patio over the smoking areas to prevent the smell to be emitting to the neighboring properties and to the adjacent uses. So one of the things that staff looks at is the square footage in the earlier slide, and I apologize, I think I moved here too fast, is that the total consumption area is 2,006 square feet. And because they're edibles, they could only have 50% of that. The smoking area cannot be more, the edibles area can be greater or equal to the smoking area. And this is something that has been reviewed with our planning division, and their proposed area meets the square footage that is allowed per the municipal code. So with that in mind, we are recommending that the West Hollywood Business License Commission adopts this resolution, this amendment, to allow the business to modify the site plan of the existing cannabis consumption area to allow the 2 outdoor smoking areas and the addition of a private smoking room. Also, I'd like to read into the record that we are requiring the following sentence to be added to the resolution. On the last sentence where it says the business owner must permanently close, in parentheses, weld the glass door located on the westerly wall to the cafe bar, we want to add the following: and properly screen the glass wall with obscured tint to ensure cannabis consumption is not visible from a public place. Because remember, that area on the western side is now becoming part of a separate business, and therefore they cannot see the consumption operations. So that's the end of my report, and we're available for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from commissioners for the staff?
I have questions, but I believe it probably would be for the applicants, not staff.
Okay. I have a question for the staff too. The first one is regarding your recommendation to have the tint. Is that a state law that says that you're not allowed to see that, or why are you recommending that?
That is part of our municipal code, that I cannot be viewable from the public place and also from age restricted. We understand the bar is going to be 21 years of older, but it's a separate business, therefore it cannot be visible.
Got it. And then second question, I think this is the first time we're having an open air smoking outside. Is that right? Or is there other businesses that are doing that successfully right now?
We previously had the High Times that were first opened back in 2011, where they had an open area, and actually they had a patio over this area.
But there's no other ones?
At this point, no, we do not have any active.
Okay.
I believe Artistry is also open. Their upstairs patio, the first or the second floor is open.
Oh, they're outdoor. You're right. I'm sorry. The outdoor patio that sits on the boulevard is open to the elements. Thank you, Commissioner Ng.
Okay. Any other questions at this time?
Are there any images aside from the plans? Are there any photos of the current place?
I don't have any photos of the current place, but I don't know if the applicant brought those pictures. But I've done a walkthrough of the business. Yeah.
And then these news areas, on the east side or west side, can you clarify that again? On which side of the existing business, these proposed areas?
They are towards the front of the business as you enter the consumption lounge. As you entered, it will be on the left-hand side and the right side, and then there's private rooms to the rear of the lot.
Okay.
Should I?
It's the farthest away from the residence.
Let
So
me-
on the
let
south,
me-
the
I
south
think I
part
can-
of the lot.
I can't show. Give me 1 second. Here it is. I don't know if you're able to see it.
Yep.
Why they shows that? My screen is, I'm sorry, but the lower part is
So
the entrance
D5,
closest.
is that D5? Which way is the D5?
D5 is towards the rear.
Uh-huh. But is
And
that,
that's within that particular enclosed private area. It's going to sit on top of a existing private room, which is 15 feet from the property line to residential. And that will be enclosed. I'm sorry, usually I use my cursor, but tonight, for whatever reason, it's not working. And the outdoor smoking, it's towards the front, and the entrance on the lower bottom portion of the screen.
so the D5, that's going to be enclosed?
That will be enclosed, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, I do have one question. Have there been any complaints of odor from any of the neighborhood?
Since inception of, they started in October, we have not had any complaints regarding odor. However, we have received complaints regarding noise, but we haven't been able to verify those complaints.
And did Artistry have any complaints for having the outdoor smoking area that you know of?
At this point, we have not received any complaints from the artistry regarding odor.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes, I just want to confirm. So the existing plans right now calls for 4 smoking areas, but the revised plan is to reconfigure it to 7.
The proposed plan is to pretty much add outdoor smoking where previously they didn't have that. Everything was within enclosed rooms.
Okay, but there were only 4, right, originally, and now
They were 4, correct, 4
4
areas.
smoking areas.
Yes.
Now they're reconfiguring it to 7 smoking areas.
Correct.
Okay. And this is just so that they can expand it to an outdoor smoking area.
Correct.
Thank you. Am I missing anything else, or is that
No, that's it.
great? Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, is the applicant present? Come on down. We'll give you 5 minutes to give your presentation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Handel. I'm one of the partners in both of the cannabis and the alcohol location. Just staff report pretty much says it all. The only thing I'd clarify for everybody is that the reason we're moving it outside is because the room that we had it in before, which was that room on the side of the outside, was also conditioned by the city for alcohol. And you can't have alcohol and weed in the same room. And taking that out, because even under application, before getting the liquor license, they told us we could not smoke there. So we've actually been with very little smoking for the last few months. So this is really critical to having the business continue as a consumption lounge. As far as blocking off the windows, not an issue. I mean, right now we have very expensive curtains that block off the windows, but if it's the will of the city to put up, you know, some kind of frosting or whatever, not a big deal. You know, we're always happy to comply with that. But again, the fact of the matter is, without having the smoking moved and having the additional area, but not additional square footage, let's be clear. Even though we're going from, say, 4 to 7 areas, the total square footage is actually a little less than what we were originally conditioned in. So we're not looking to increase it. We're not looking to increase occupancy. We're just looking to make it work. We want to be the lounge that actually shows the country. And I think this city has seen, if they've been watching TV in the last 2 weeks, that this lounge has been featured on CBS in the morning, nationwide. It's been featured on Saturday Night Live last week with Woody Harrelson, one of our partners, and we're bringing great visibility to the city. So, we're just trying to, we're trying to make a really great business and let you help become the new Amsterdam that the city said it wanted to become. And I think we're really taking those giant leaps. And we've invested a tremendous amount of money to make it happen. So, we're very pleased with the staff report. We're very pleased with the location. And we hope that you guys will go ahead and approve the plan. And we've had people that come out and see what we do, and odor control is not an issue for us. Without having the odor control system in now, it is not an issue. I think we smell more hamburgers than we do weed at this point. So, and again, having 3 vegan partners, that doesn't go over too well for me. Makes it very difficult for me sometimes to explain why I have to invest in an odor control system. But in any case, yeah, we're very pleased. So if you have any questions, I'm here to entertain them.
Great, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Please go ahead.
Good evening. First off, I want to say that I've heard Woody on numerous interviews mentioning the woods and the city. In one instance, he called it Los Angeles, or someone else did. So I appreciate that it's getting so much promotion. We'd really appreciate if it continued to be named as West Hollywood and not Los Angeles.
Absolutely. I can tell you when I had my restaurant in Culver City, they were always referring to Sony Studios as being in Los Angeles, until the CEO went on air and said, no, we're Culver City.
So my question is, the employees that will be in the lounge, are they different than your dispensary employees, or are they all rotating, or how is that distinguished?
So we have a separate staff in the lounge who are very aware of what lounge rules are, but everybody is cross-trained. The one place you won't have a flip over, obviously, is with the bar, because it's a separate entity. But as far as the lounge itself goes, we have 3 managers that are on, always have a manager, and there's 3 managers working all the shifts, and 2 assistant managers, and 1 actual back manager who handles just the personnel out in the consumption area.
Okay. I'd like to ask what the training is for your employees in terms of consumption, because it's very different than, say, the retail section.
Absolutely. So we have a handbook that was put together by Kochko Vitello, our attorney firm, and our HR firm. They are probably one of the most premier attorney firms in the city of LA, in the county of LA. Again, it's about a 33, 34-page manual. They have to read it, they have to sign it, and then we do trainings on a regular basis out in the consumption area. And as owners, myself, my partner Devin, we are constantly in and out of the store. We own other stores throughout LA, but not consumption lounges. We have one in Lompoc. I get corrected all the time. But we're in the store every day. My car has had enough driving. They're tired. But we're in there watching every day, and there's trainings every month of all the staff that come in. And we have very little turnover because we pay them. We pay them well, we treat them well, we treat them the way we treat anybody in all of our stores. And, our turnover rate is less than 10% in our other stores that are 5 years old. So we consider that to be a testament to how we work with our people.
Okay, I'll comment that I'm glad to hear that your training is extensive. And I would also like to suggest that you include medical cannabis advocate or training is in addition to an attorney. I think it would be helpful to have medical training.
So in one of our stores, we have a cannabis nurse. And that person is, able to go from any of the stores that we need them to go to help train and do, whatever we need them to do to keep them up to date. Also, we try to make sure that everyone has at least some training in CPR and other methods, because it's not just, cannabis you have to worry about. What happens if somebody, has a heart attack on the floor? Well, I can tell you, having owned restaurants, it wouldn't be the first time. So you have to have people that are trained to be able to save lives and make the right decisions very fast, and that's what we do.
I'm glad to hear that. And then finally, I'd like to ask, have you had any incidents of overconsumption? Or I don't know if you're familiar with hyperemesis, what that means or what that is, but it's essentially cannabis overconsumption and a physical reaction to it. Have you had any incidences of this happening?
No, we have not. And, quite frankly, when you look at cannabis consumption versus alcohol consumption, we're really tightening up now as we're getting ready to open the bar next door, because people who drink tend to get one way and people who smoke tend to go another way. And frankly, before they can overconsume, they typically are just too tired to consume much more. So, and we regulate them, and the state regulates them. The state has a regulation of how much you can purchase at any given time during the day. So, it's kind of regulated right through the POS system and through our own bud tenders who are eyeballing, kind of like the Century program for alcohol. We do it with weed.
You can consume, or you can purchase an ounce a day. That's a lot. It's a lot.
I don't smoke. To be honest with you, I'm still a judge for the LA Police Commission, so I don't smoke. It's not something I've ever done, quite frankly. I know people who could smoke an ounce a day all day long. I know people who can smoke all day long, but an ounce is a lot you can purchase. But typically, they don't get that far. The reality is, people who come in to use the cabanas may come 4, 5, or 6 people, to max out the cabana. And if they buy an ounce, they're going to split it up among them, and they're all going to smoke it and get the best, out of that ounce.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Commissioner Eng?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm the current agenda packet did not include any current information pertaining to any complaints, calls for service, and/or code violations. That is regarding the establishment here tonight, and that is because there have been no violations, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from commissioners?
There was a unconfirmed noise complaint, right, from the neighbors.
That was a complaint, but not a violation. It hasn't been verified.
Unverified noise complaint?
Correct.
Right. Do you, as an owner, know of who made the complaint, or do you have any neighbors that complain regularly?
So I don't know who it was. I actually met with Jessica the other day, and obviously people who make complaints, it's anonymous or it's to be held back. We're not supposed to know. So I did research to find out what was going on that night. The complaint came in at about 2:30, saying that we had loud music on in the back around 2:30 in the morning. Checked with the alarm company. Everything was clocked out at 10:38 in the evening. Checking with our IT people, going back and doing forensics on the routers and the system that we have. What we can find is that someone actually hacked our Wi-Fi and was playing music either on their phone, an iPad, or something. Why? I don't know. Where they were, couldn't tell you. There was nothing on our cameras to show anybody. And for the record, we have cameras inside, outside. We have lasers on the roof, for people who like to break in through the roof. So we checked everything. There was nobody on premise. Bottom line is what we can see is somebody hacked into it. So that next day after we heard about it, we had our IT people come in and we changed the whole router and Wi-Fi system. So I would like to say it's virtually impossible to get into, but as we all know what seamless technology means, seems like the more they give us, the less it works. So, hopefully no one will cut in on our Wi-Fi again. But we were very diligent, and we did check with the alarm company, and we do have the proof that that building was locked up and done at 10:38 that night. So there was nobody in there at 2:30 in the morning.
So
Okay.
It was just one time. And again, with what we just spent on redoing the system, I hope it's the last time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? I believe so.
Yes, Chair. We have Genevieve Morrill wishing to speak on item 7A.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Genevieve Morrill, President and CEO of the West Hollywood Chamber. It's so good to see you in person, and I hope to get to know you, Commissioner Ang and Commissioner Hang. If I'm pronouncing those correctly, I apologize. Did I get close? Anyway, thank you for listening to us tonight. We are here in support of the Woods and allowing additional space for smoking and vaping. The first thing you should know about the Woods, if you haven't been, I hope all of you have been there, is how amazing and beautiful it is. They took over a Thomas Schuh's space, and Thomas Schuh is a pretty well-known designer in the industry, as Chair Vellum knows, and they didn't do much to it. You know, they kept the koi pond, and they kept the macaws, and you know, there's so much eye candy in that place. When we went during a walkthrough, there was a little hummingbird nest that was growing. I mean, there's just so much to see that it's one of those spaces, you know, the consumption lounges are very challenging. They're challenging because it takes a lot to, you know, bring people in rather than being on your couch, right? And so programming and bringing in comedy stores or panel discussions or film nights or whatever, those seem to be what need to happen, like at different places, to make them alive. In this case, it doesn't need that. It has so much life there for people to look at. And this is the concept. These lounges were envisioned by the City Council over 5 years ago. And now we have a lot of blows to the industry. You know, the first blow came when the applications were almost done, where the state of California decided that you couldn't sell food and beverage. That kind of blew these beautiful concepts that we had for them. Then we had 35% in taxes, state bill, you know, that was amended. And then the pandemic, and then policies that escalated labor costs and the highest inflation in the century. And now as we're getting these lounges up and running, let's say it's just tough to make ends meet. And so these dispensaries need about over 12,000 to 20,000 a day to meet, to even break even. And so we really need to you know, the Woods isn't asking for anything unusual. I'm glad you asked that question about outdoor space. The original Lowell's, which was the original cafe, had huge outdoor. It was completely open, as well as artistry. And so outdoors, as we know in Southern California, is the California experience right now. And we should all be doing everything we can to help support this new, not so new, but still misunderstood and highly regulated legal industry, so that they thrive and that they can promote West Hollywood as a place to have the most unique cannabis experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
There are no other speakers in chambers, but I believe there may be some speakers in Zoom.
We do have a speaker ending in 9751. If you could press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the agenda, but I wanted to just add, there have been a lot of lounges that are coming out throughout the city of West Hollywood. It seems like this city alone has close to 20 or 30 places that are either in the cannabis industry or allowing for there to be cannabis smoking. It's, I wouldn't say on the line of excessive, but there are no surrounding cities that allow what West Hollywood has allowed when they opened up the first dispensaries. Now you have lounges, now you have exclusive clubs. It's getting, you know, so much or inundated that every time I walk the streets, everything is a cannabis industry or someone's smoking cannabis. And I know it's legal, but it's just frustrating when people who don't partake in it have to deal with cannabis smokers and regular smokers. And, you know, you're trying to have an industry that wants to be regulated, but the city seems to have allowed Pandora's box to be opened about them not following rules and guidelines as well as laws. That they no smoking beyond near a place of business or an establishment or bus stop or what have you. I mean, the city has to really do their best, or enforcement has to be out there to regulate, make sure it doesn't come into the streets as it is in the facilities or those places of business. So I'm just a little frustrated because, you know, clubs being open and then this, it seems that the two epicenters of club and entertainment and now cannabis. Is there anything else, really? Asking Genevieve Morrell or anybody else. And, you know, I know that that's your interest in the industry, but what about those residents who just are feeling like it's a nuisance sometimes? And, I mean, businesses from La Brea all the way practically to Doheny, having problems socially, you know, discord and maybe arguments happening and fights happening, you know, in certain places because of the you know, the population that goes and gathers at some. Some are more upscale, and others are just, people can come in and leave, and if they have an issue, then they have words with the owner, or they have words with each other, or who knows, parking spaces, if people are trying to abuse, and then double parking. Just enforce things, because it's getting to be cumbersome, and it's becoming agitating on my part, being a commuter on a bus or on the sidewalk. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. James Francis Wendell, West Hollywood.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers that wish to speak? Please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, we have no other further speakers for this item.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to make any final closing thoughts, or? All right, please.
Yes, I just want to say that, first of all, the city requires us to have security and have security patrols and to keep logs on those patrols. So the last speaker, certainly I can understand them worrying about having people out in front of their house, in their driveway, in their carports, smoking weed or maybe drinking or whatever. But I can tell you that we are very diligent in making sure we obey the codes. My position in West LA and LA politically is I will never be caught on the front page of the LA Times doing a perp walk because of a weed store. So we're very, very, very diligent about things like that. And I don't believe, to my knowledge, what I've heard and what I know, and in talking to Genevieve, I don't believe the sheriffs have had any major incidents regarding cannabis consumption in the streets, of West Hollywood as well. So, we're a safe industry. We police ourselves, and we're very well policed by the cities we go in, including this city. And we're very happy to have sheriffs who respond very quickly should a homeless person on the street be in danger or endangering people. While it may not be us, being affected in the store, there are people, citizens that are being affected, and we make sure that we make the calls to help whoever is having an issue out on the street. But there's been no issues. It's all good. But again, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any final questions from commissioners at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually maybe more like two statements. To respond to Ms. Morrow, I don't know if I'm supposed to do that, but really, like when you say it's 35%, the taxes for cannabis businesses are usually 70 because you're not able to write off because of federal status. So that's even more challenging. And then it's not accurate to say that there are 20 or 30 cannabis businesses in this city. I think that's a myth that I keep hearing. We do have 40 licenses, but at the moment, I think there are only 7 open dispensaries, and only 2 of them have consumptions. And it's important for the public to know that the 40 licenses are spread across. So some businesses like the Woods actually have 3 licenses. So it's not accurate to say that there are 20 or 30 businesses in the city.
Okay. Any other questions? You'll have your chance to give your comments in a minute. Okay, at this time then, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing and bring back the matter to the commission for discussion and deliberation. So anybody else have any questions, comments? This is our time to decide what we think is right to do. Commissioner Lowe.
I don't really have much comments. I am ready to motion, but I'll wait for everybody else.
Is there any other comments from anyone? Are you ready to vote? Okay, go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, I motion to approve the change in the configuration and move forward with staff's recommendation.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's been a motion to approve the staff's recommendation. Can we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Eng?
Aye.
Commissioner Heng?
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Yes.
Chair Volan?
Aye.
The item is approved.
Okay, thank you. And item number 7B, an application by WehoTV for an extended hour business license to operate until 4 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, located at 8911 Santa Monica Boulevard. I'll now open the public hearing on item 7B. How was this item noticed, Secretary?
As required by law.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any disclosures to make? Okay. Is there a staff report?
Hi, good evening, commissioners. My name is Jessica Benitez, Code Enforcement Supervisor. With me this evening is Vito Adamides, Neighborhood and Business Safety Manager, and Director of Community Safety, Danny Rivas, and from the Sheriff's Department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is Sergeant Duron, and also Deputy City Attorney Grace Yo. So the item before you this evening is regarding WeHo, located at 8911 Santa Monica Boulevard, and the request is for the extended hour business license. So let's talk about the business. The business is in a commercial unit on Santa Monica Boulevard between San Vicente Boulevard and Hildale Avenue in the entertainment district. The business is adjacent to other similar commercial establishments, and they have a large parking lot to the rear. Unfortunately, my cursor is not working, but as you can see, there's San Vicente to the west, to the east. We have Hildale to the west. We have the large parking lot to the north. And then on Keith and Hildale on the screen, that's the residential on the north side, and the bottom is commercial. So let's provide some background regarding WeHo. So WeHo is a nightclub with an outdoor patio. They began their operation in January of 2022. The business also has current entitlements that authorize the sales, service, and consumption of alcohol service until 2 o'clock in the morning. Their current hours of operations are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. If this request is approved by this commission, the sale and service of alcohol will be prohibited as mandated by the state of California. So since November of 2022, the venue has obtained special event permits to operate on Saturdays and Sundays from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So each business is allowed to have 12 permits per year, and each special event permit that would issue to the establishment, we have conditioned that, of course, they stop the sale and service and consumption of alcohol beverages. In addition, we have conditioned that they use metal hand wand detectors for any patrons that are entering the establishment after 2. They need to hire the code enforcement officer to monitor the extended hours, recovery of costs associated with any service costs that need public safety personnel. This includes the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department. In addition to that, they need to cease operations of the outdoor patio by 2 a.m., and that's to prevent any noise complaints. From this period, the city did not receive any noise complaints, and there was one instance, though, that we did see a violation where the security guards were not using the metal hand detector. The officer spoke to the business, and that issue was corrected. So now in February of 2023, they submitted a complete business license application to operate past 2 o'clock in the morning. So pretty much they want to operate between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. This excludes alcoholic beverages. So before we begin, as far as the criteria when we review this application, on my screen, I've added an aerial view of the city with the extended hour businesses. Just give you a little bit of background, we have 24 extended hour business licenses throughout the entire city of West Hollywood. That includes restaurants, convenience stores, grocery store, a tattoo parlor, a hospital, a nightclub, and an adult entertainment business. Here, because I'm limited to the screen, I was only able to just add what's the subject area, which is in the red bubble. And then next to it, to the right of on my screen, you will see a purple. That is a nightclub establishment. And also on the northern side, just below where it says businesses, there's another purple balloon. That is a adult entertainment club. It's called the Body Shop. So just wanted to give you a scenario of what's happening in the city of West Hollywood, but more importantly, on the Santa Monica Boulevard, we have 5 businesses that are currently operating with an extended hours business license, and that is between La Cienega Boulevard and Doheny Drive. So, as part of the application, staff has reviewed the following criteria that is required by the municipal code. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the criteria, and on the right-hand side of my screen, you will see the calls for service. So the very first thing is the manager required. A manager will be required to be on site during extended of operations. Second item is light and glare. The nightclub will not be adding any additional lighting, and no issues are anticipated with light and glare trespassing into the residential areas, which is on the north block from the subject location. From the subject location. On the front, they have lighting on the facade of the business, but that does not glare into the residential. That actually faces the commercial establishment in the entertainment district. The third criteria is noise, and this is one of the criteria is to prevent and minimize any noise impacts, and for the business to be in compliance with the noise ordinance. The business will not be allowed to use the outdoor patio area past 2 o'clock in the morning, and they must keep the patio doors closed at all time after the extended hours to once again prevent any noise impacts. In addition to that, the business will be further conditioned to have a security guard to monitor the noise levels and keep a log of all registered complaints. I'd like to say that our code enforcement records indicates no complaints we've received during the inception of this nightclub or from any special event permits. The fourth criteria, and I want to emphasize on the 4th and 5th criteria, which is the traffic impacts and parking, is that the business is in a commercial district as shown earlier in the earlier slide. There is a large public parking space to the north, and also there are parking meters on Hilldale, on Santa Monica, but we did receive a report from our parking enforcement that there had been some reports of vehicles parking in the red curb, which is immediately in front of the venue, and also at the rear in the alleyway. So to ensure that there are no traffic impacts to the neighborhood, the business will be conditioned to have a dedicated security guard to address these issues. The 5th criteria, or actually the 6th criteria, the crime prevention, the applicant or the business has over 40 surveillance cameras throughout the establishment, and there will be 6 licensed unarmed security guards during the extended hours. Also, as part of this review, we have contacted the Sheriff's Department regarding calls for service, and we've included 2018, 2019, because previously this location was occupied by a nightclub. If you recall, it used to be called the Rage nightclub. Unfortunately, in early 2020, they closed, and so they were closing, obviously, the property was vacant in 2020, 2021, and WeHo occupied the establishment in 2020. Hence the reason why we requested the calls for service from between January 2022 to January 2023. We had 67 calls for service during the time that we requested this report. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Duron from the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station to explain more about the calls for service.
Hi, good evening, Commission. Sergeant Jason Duran from the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station. I oversee the entertainment policing team, which handles the majority of the type of calls that are at this location. Through the 2022 year, we got data from January 1st of 2022 that went to December 31st of 2022 for a solid year. We had 61 calls for service. Within that time period, the majority of the calls were theft and theft-related type incidents, mainly dealing with pickpocket type reports that have been widespread throughout the city. That was the majority of the calls. The next was miscellaneous type incidents. That could have anything to do with a check the area, for example, where somebody saw something maybe in front of the location or the side of the location, maybe a homeless issue at the location. So we had calls that weren't necessarily directly related to the club and the operation. So there was 10 calls for that. We had 8 calls for business disturbance related incidents, and that had to do with anything that related to the business where, for example, the business owner or the management would call us where somebody was causing a disturbance or causing an issue that needed us to step in to intervene and try to remedy it in some type of way. We had 12 calls for assault and or batteries at the location. And that could pertain to people being assaulted in the club by patron versus patron type of thing. And then we did have some that had reports where it was location staff being the assaulting party, that were reports of that happening. We had 1 alarm call, which is like an audible security alarm at the location. We had 2 reports of robberies that generated from that location. And then we had 3 calls of intoxication or medical related to intoxication at the location.
Thank you, Sergeant Duran. So with that, we review the criteria based on the Municipal Code 5.52.030 and based on the service calls from the Sheriff's Department. So with that in mind, we believe that it would be feasible to recommend approval of extending the hours of the nightclub on Saturdays and Sundays from between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and imposing the following conditions, which some of them include to provide a security service with a minimum of 6 licensed unarmed security guards during the operations. Metal hand detectors should be used during extended hours of operations. The outdoor patio will not be included in the extended hours, as this area will be closed at 2 a.m. and the patio needs to remain closed at all times. In addition to that is that all public safety related to sheriff station calls, fire department, paramedic services, related to calls as a result of the cost for service to the business will be recovered. In other words, any cost for service needing the public safety services will be able to recover the cost. And also the business, one of the conditions was that they resolve the unpermitted screening that they have. That was obviously not part of the criteria, but I just wanted to put this on the record that they have that. I did an inspection this morning and that has been removed. So with that, we recommend that the commission finds that the applicant has satisfied the West Hollywood Municipal Code and approved as outlined in the resolution. And this concludes our staff presentation, and we're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Do any commissioners have any questions for the staff at this time? Commissioner Lowe?
Yeah. Jessica, thank you for the report. I really do appreciate the work that goes behind it. Can you explain to me how you guys came to the conclusion of moving forward with the recommendation? I'm curious because as I see, if I'm looking at the year over year, with the exception of 2020 COVID, it looks like the number of incidences, the number of calls of incidences has increased and also sort of escalated too, meaning, you know, there's numbers of theft, there's numbers of assaults. I'm just curious, what was the standard in which you guys set yourself to approve that? I just want to get a clear line of understanding of how you guys did that.
Yeah, so the service calls were for the period through the entire operation, but we focus mainly on the calls that were reported after 2 o'clock, between the hours of 2 and 3. And if that's the information the Sergeant Duran shared earlier, and so they were not that many. So because this is a new business, there were no red flags that we would have said, okay, we will go ahead and deny the application. Additionally, I want to say that the business wanted to requested actually to operate 7 days a week until 4 o'clock in the morning. So we said no Friday and Saturday based on the service calls, based on what they provided. Therefore, that's how we came with the conclusion that it will be feasible on Saturdays and Sundays from 2 a.m. and 4, and that they come back to this commission in 6 months to see how they're operating.
I do appreciate the cap on that, on the hours. I think that's important to note. You also mentioned that there was 5. Sorry, I have a follow-up question. You also mentioned that there was 5 other businesses that actually operate on extended hours during the weekends as well. Did you guys compare that to the other businesses to see the incidence of calls?
No, I did not. But there is another nightclub to 1 block west of the location.
Right.
And prior to COVID, there was another business called Flaming Saddles at 8811 Santa Monica Boulevard, and they had an extended hours similar to this on Saturdays and Sundays to 4 o'clock in the morning.
And it didn't dawn on you guys to compare that as well as a sort of as a protocol?
No, because we were just focusing on this particular venue, since they have been operating with an extended hours since November. Anything that would be a red flag, we would have said no.
I appreciate that, and I understand that they are a new business, but there's already an existing business that has already extended hours that have gone through that process, and we think we could have probably benefited from looking at that analysis as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question for Sergeant Duran. Is that okay? Yeah. So it looks like in 2022, the biggest jump was for the first item, for theft, and most likely it's cell phones, right? People are pickpocketing for cell phones. I guess what I'm trying to find out is, has this business been doing a better job than other businesses that are open, or is it worse? And regarding the pickpocketing, has that chain been broken? Have they been caught? I think I heard something about that.
So it's really tough for us to do a comparison from one business to the next with the job that their security staff is doing. This problem with the pickpocketing has been throughout the whole entire Rainbow District, has been hit hard quite a bit. And from trends, from what we've seen, it seems to move from club to club. So for example, one weekend might be hit hard at Hart, and then the next weekend might be somewhere else. So it kind of does rotate around, and it is still happening. We still are seeing those numbers come up on a regular basis. In relation to a specific place, not so much, but the numbers are still there overall in the Rainbow District.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sergeant Duran, I have a question. Thank you for joining us, first of all. I've heard several reports from various community members that an incident occurred outside of Hart this past weekend, past the hours of 2 a.m., in the early hours of the morning. In which the sheriffs were called and responded. Can you explain to the commission and to the public what happened with that incident?
So the incident is still under investigation. There were some arrests made in conjunction with that incident. I can provide some details. It was after 2 a.m., and it involved the security staff being assaulted by different people at the location.
Great, thank you. And I have a couple follow-up questions. Of the 67 calls, or you said 61, reported, how many of those were after 2 a.m.? Can you break that down?
I'm sorry, yeah, I don't have the breakdown for those specific 67 calls. I don't have the breakdown for anything after 2 a.m. It would take basically me going through every single call to figure that out. The majority were in the nighttime hours or the evening hours. I can tell that for sure. But after 2 a.m., I can't give you a precise number at this point.
Thank you. And then I guess a question for either director or the manager. What was the fiscal impact to the city for these 67 or 61 calls? Cost per hour, cost per officer?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hank. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to provide that exact number at this time. And like Jessica had mentioned and Sergeant Duran, we of course would be looking at the calls for service, right, that came in after 2 a.m. or between kind of the block that's being requested between 2 and 4. But that's certainly something that we could look into and compile, but I can't provide that number right now.
Thank you. And then lastly, how often does code compliance come out and conduct surprise on-site visits?
We have a dedicated code enforcement officer. Monday through Wednesday, we have one that works until midnight, and they do random inspections. We have another one that works Thursday through Sunday. Yeah, Thursday through Sunday until 3 o'clock in the morning, and he is monitoring the boulevards to make sure that businesses are complying with their conditional use permits.
And then one quick question. For the 67 or so calls, does the city recoup any of these costs back?
I'll defer to my director.
Yeah, and so generally speaking, like during regular hours of operation, the answer to that question is no. You know, but when we look at requests such as these, and as reflected actually in the resolution, we obviously are considering any sort of public safety related impacts. So that is something that the city will be pursuing. Because of course, if a nightclub or an entertainment establishment is having calls for service, right, it's necessitating having West Hollywood Sheriff Station deputies or Los Angeles County Fire Department personnel, et cetera, that are responding, then obviously we want to make sure that we're capturing and recovering those costs, because if the business was closed, then obviously those public safety personnel would not be responding. But currently we're not capturing those costs. We do apply it for special event permits, depending on the type of activity or activation that somebody's proposing. But certainly taking into consideration, again, what we've looked at here, we are applying that and incorporating that and proposing that before the commission this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. The first, I think, is a follow-up to Commissioner Lowe's question about the other businesses that are operating after hours. So we don't have any data regarding noise complaints that relate to those after-hour activities. Is that correct?
And Commissioner Saltzman, are you
Yes.
referring to the other businesses
The
that
other
are opening and
businesses,
operating right
yes.
now? I don't believe that we looked at each individual extended hours business license as a part of this item. We just concentrated on the HART itself, so we wouldn't be able to provide that info right now.
Thank you. And as I understand the conditions, condition number 9, if I can get it to come back up. A licensed unarmed security guard shall patrol the surrounding venue to monitor the noise levels during the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. and to address any parking impacts from rideshare vehicles. So I understand that there's one guard who will be looking not only at the rideshare vehicles in the front on Santa Monica Boulevard, to the east on San Vicente, to the west on Hilldale, and to the north where the parking and the alley is. And I just know from personal experience the tremendous traffic and parking problems in that area, often created by the sheriff themselves, parking on Hilldale and creating a tremendous parking backup. So I just raised a question whether one unarmed security guard could possibly do what we're asking him or her to do. Any thoughts about that?
No thoughts. And Jessica, I know it was unmuting yourself, but we recommended that based off of the input and feedback received from our parking enforcement function, based off of what they're observing, of course, as it relates to the special event permits and just in general in that area. So it's purely just what staff had recommended. We generally don't apply that to other extended hour business license applications, but we thought that it would at least be consistent with what you all have seen as it relates to cannabis business license hearings, where we do require kind of that one, right, security neighborhood guard, if you will, that will kind of patrol that area. So we felt that we would maybe incorporate that and ask them to do a little bit further in terms of rideshare.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, do any of the criteria that come from the code that you've said they have satisfied all of those criteria, do any of those criteria include neighborhood concerns, for example, about noise? I understand there's a criterion about noise itself, but I'm asking about concerns raised by the neighborhood.
There's no criteria in the West Hollywood Municipal Code Section 5.52. However, there is a section that this commission can impose other conditions as you seem fit.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
And just to note, since November, they've had many late hour permits until 4 o'clock, and there have been no noise complaints from any neighbors, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Chair, I have a few questions
Yes,
for staff.
Commissioner.
Can I ask staff, do you have the total number of nightclubs we have in the city? I don't know. Can you tell me?
Nightclubs that have extended hours permit or just nightclubs overall? I would have to, no, I don't have it. If you want me to do an approximately, I could probably say we have about eight. I want to say approximately 8 nightclubs.
Okay, of those, how many are also doing after-hour special event permits?
Currently, just one, which is located east of the subject location, and they're open until 4 o'clock in the morning.
None of the others are because I know with Hart, they've been doing special event permits, right, to stay open till 4. Are no other clubs doing that?
No, not currently.
And Commissioner Ang, just to clarify, I believe your question was which of those approximate 8 are doing special event permits, right? Was that your question, or are operating as approved under an extended hours?
Extended hours is what I'm curious about.
Got it. So yeah, so it is one. I thought I heard special event permit, which is a different temporary.
I understand, but that's actually how Hart has been operating until 4 this past year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and are you aware of any other clubs that will be seeking to extend their hours?
I'm not aware of any other business.
Okay. Commissioner Yusupov and then Commissioner Lowe.
So the stats that we saw on the screen for 2018, 2019, were they for Rage?
Yes.
And Rage did not operate until 4 a.m., right? That was on.
Only until 2 o'clock in the morning.
And so then the latest stats for 22, they were for Hart, correct?
The 2022 were solely for Hart.
And Hart started operating extended hours since November?
November, correct.
And those calls were for entire 22 or just since November?
For entire 2022.
Is there a number where can we compare before November 22 and after November 22? Are those stats broken down by months?
I will defer to Sergeant Dodon.
No, they aren't broken down. We would have to do that. We'd have to take a look at that and get that information. It would take a day or so, but we could get it for you.
But that should be easy to do because the calls are dated, right?
Right. Everything's dated, and I can search by month, by week, however we want to do it. I can get data.
Because I think there were 12 assaults throughout the 22, and so, but we don't know if those happened one per month or they all happened in the second part of a year. that we don't know yet.
Correct, yeah. I did see, like, for example, I saw 1 month, I think had 3 in 1 month, so that 12 isn't necessarily spread out.
Do you remember which month?
I don't, I just remember having to see it.
Okay. And there's only, so we have 5 or 6 extended hour businesses in the city, right?
Sorry about that. So in the corridor between La Cienega and Doheny, in that corridor, we have 5. Through the entire city, we have 24 businesses that have extended hours, but that it's a mixture of different businesses.
But out of those 24 throughout the city, only one of them is nightclub.
One is a nightclub, and then the other one is an adult entertainment club.
What's the difference?
It's an adult entertainment. It's a nude.
But it's, so do they have amplified music and
I don't know what the classification that our our planning department has given them, so I just referred it as an adult entertainment versus the nightclub.
And the one that has already extended hours, is that the one on Santa Monica Boulevard?
Yes, it is.
And that's Mickey's, right?
That is Mickey's, yes.
And how long they had extended hours?
Until 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, but for how long they had?
It's before cityhood. They have
Oh,
been
so
legal,
they're
non-conforming.
grandfathered in.
Correct.
And we did not look in their stats as far as number of calls. That would be actually a perfect example to.
That is correct. But just one comment, that comparison with WeHo. WeHo is going to be enclosed. We're not going to allow them to use the outdoor patio. Versus Mickey's, they have their patio. They can use their patio. They have the doors, because once again, it was before it was grandfathering.
And so the plan is until 2 a.m. they can use the patio, and then at 2 a.m. they have to.
They need to ask their patrons.
Close and move everyone inside? Is that the plan?
Yes, they either need to ask their patrons to leave or to go back inside.
Okay. Would it be possible to get that additional information? I think that would be important to see how the stats change. Actually, it's a perfect example to see before November and after November, since they are already operating extended hours. And I'm assuming they're operating extended hours every weekend, correct? Since November?
That is correct, through an extended
So that gives us, 5 months of operation already?
About 4 months, yeah.
So I think that would be vital stats to see before and after, and that would be a good information for commission to have to make an informed decision. So that's all my questions.
Okay. Is there any other commissioner who has a question? Commissioner Lowe?
Yeah, this might not be directed to you, but Jessica, but I'm going to attempt to see if you actually could answer it. Do we know what the benefits are? Why they're requesting for the extended hours?
I would defer to the applicant to go into detail, but based on what they've shared with us is to be able to provide soft drinks, be able to provide entertainment, dancing, and also some food for patrons that want to enter the establishment or that are leaving nearby establishments after 2 o'clock. But
So it's not a compelling reason, but it's more of a extended to their patrons, basically.
Yeah, and I'll defer for the applicant. The applicant, I believe, is here, then they can elaborate more.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, well, at this time, will the applicant please come forward and you can make your presentation. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ann Gray, and I am representing the Heart nightclub. So the thing about the extended hours and the not serving alcohol is actually a really crucial distinction to make for this extended hours. It has a lot of, we believe that it has a lot of public benefit to allow people, not everybody doesn't leave all at once at 2 o'clock, provide traffic congestion, getting away, rideshare vehicles all arriving at the same time, people not being able to go to the bathroom before they leave. There's a whole number of reasons why you want people to decompress, stay in the club for another hour or two, and then leave at a more random distribution of time instead of everybody leaving all at once at the end of the night. So we think that there is a public benefit to this sort of decompression and a gradual closing down of the club operation. You should also know the club owner is local. They care very much about the community, and they would like on the public record the phone number of their general manager in case there are nuisance calls. It's Adolfo Espinoza, 909-912-9032 in case there are any issues. So just to reiterate, they haven't had complaints about noise. Between 2 and 4 o'clock, they do close up their patio. People do not stay outside. And they have what they call a void sound system, which is a very directional sound system so that you can actually stand behind the speaker and have a normal conversation. So people that are dancing or enjoying the music can also share space with people that are just there for dinner. So it's kind of a unique system. Also, the crime stats that you were looking at, partly, I don't know all the details of it, and frankly, we were a little surprised by some of the categories, but you should know that if there is a patron who's uncooperative, who's had too much to drink and needs to be escorted out of the club, if they may decide to actually call the sheriff, or if they cause a problem for the club, then the club will call the sheriff. So the club really feels they've had a great collaborative relationship with the sheriff's department and helping them, crack the pickpocket rings and being very, very communicative every time that there is actually an issue, because they're concerned as local operators that they maintain good relationships, they look out for public safety. They obviously don't want to lose their ABC license, and they want to make sure that your commission is satisfied that they're meeting all of their requirements.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Yep, Commissioner Ng.
Thank you, Chair. I have several questions. What current protocols do you currently employ to ensure that all alcohol in place is removed from patrons right at 2 a.m. in adherence to state law? And this will also include customers with already drinks in hand and customers at table with bottles at table service.
I'll defer to Paul on this one.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
When 2 o'clock hits, if somebody has a drink in their hand, how do you stop them from drinking?
We actually stop, so we actually had a different, so at 1:30, we have actually 1:50.
If you could approach the podium, please, it'd be better. Thanks.
At around 1:15, we have visuals and announcements that say last call for alcohol. At 1:30, we do a final last call and start sweeping the floor for anybody who might be trying to get clever and hide drinks or something like that. Shortly thereafter, about 1:35, we do shots only at the bar so we can actually supervise the patron. And at 1:45 sharp, we stop serving. So we leave a 15-minute buffer, which the average person will finish a drink or, within 15 minutes. That being said, we still do sweep the floor, send security around to make sure that there's no, obviously our ABC licenses, our liquor licenses are not easy to get. So the last thing we want to do is jeopardize it. So we're pretty, we implemented the policy right off the bat, and we've had great success in ensuring that we stick with that.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, sir, who are you? Can you just identify yourself?
Oh yes, I'm Paul Dickles. I'm one of the partners at Heart and also Director of Promotions.
And then I have a follow-up question. I've had several community members come up to me and basically complain and explain that Heart does not serve tap water, that they force their customers or patrons to buy bottled water. So that is a concern that I do have. And I do know that Rocco's across the street, which you guys also own, has a free water station for patrons to get. So I don't think it's illegal for Heart not to serve water, tap water, but I mean, if someone is too drunk, as she said, I mean, I would hope that,
No, we do serve water. After hours, if somebody, the policy is after hours, obviously, like she was explaining, this is more of a service to us. It actually comes at a cost to us because we're not really serving, stuff that generates revenue. So our policy after 2 a.m. is if somebody asks for a water, to give them a bottled water. That being said, if somebody says, no, I don't want a bottle of water, I'd like a glass of water, of course we give them a glass of water. And obviously, I will remind everyone that that is the policy that works at the establishment. Needless to say, we should always give people access to water.
So
It's actually proven to be good for business too, if people can have water, because it, allows them to consume more responsibly.
So from 10 to 2, there's no free water, but from 2 to 4.
No, there's always free water.
I've gotten water.
Yeah, if somebody asks, if somebody goes, I'd like a vodka soda and a water, we serve them a vodka soda and a bottle of water gets put out. If somebody says, I'd like a vodka soda and a glass of water or ice water, we serve them a glass of water or ice water. I think there was a couple instances when we first started where there were some customers that was like, I ordered it in the water and they charged me for a bottle, and there was some confusion with the bartender. We've since kind of addressed that, and we'll continue to address it because I agree with you, it is very important.
So maybe that was it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ng?
Can I ask if you have spoken to your employees about how they would feel or how they feel about staying open till 4?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm curious if you considered your employees or if you've spoken to the employees about staying open and how they feel.
Yeah, no, the employees all feel like it's a good idea. I'll cut to the chase. The reason why I really push for this, I've been throwing parties in West Hollywood for 15 years. And anybody that goes out in West Hollywood knows about what they call the sidewalk sale or the street show. There's many names for it. It's the chaos that the city plunges into at 2 a.m. when you throw thousands and thousands of people onto the street at the exact same time. In a lot of other places, for example, Canada, you're required by law to stay open for an hour after you stop serving. And what happens is these establishments are under great pressure to kick 1,000 people out within 15 minutes. And I don't know, for those of you who haven't been out at 2 o'clock in the morning, the one thing I will tell you, the only bigger ripoff with Uber and Lyft at 2 o'clock in the morning than LAX is West Hollywood. They know cabs are gone. So we have a situation at 2 a.m. where there's thousands of people who are somewhat at some level of intoxication, who are trying to get home, and they cannot get an Uber and they cannot get a Lyft. And they're surging at 4 times the rate. And a lot of these people don't have money to pay $80 for an Uber that would otherwise cost $15. So we have people that are in a decision where they're making impulsive decisions. I'm not necessarily going to argue because facts that somebody's going to sober up enough to drive home in an hour, but they're certainly going to have an hour to organize themselves and make a well thought out decision and not have the chaos on the street. And what happens is also people are getting kicked out. They can't, like she said, they can't use the bathroom. You have people urinating. I live a block away from the club, so I know firsthand. When I returned my car on my lease, I had to explain to them why there was scratches up and down my car. It was from people having sex on the hood of my car. They were kicked out of the club. Like, this is a regular thing. It's a disturbance for the neighborhood, and I'm a neighbor. To me, after doing this for 15 years, the one thing I will tell you is it is not wise to create chaos and combine that with alcohol consumption. Any level of alcohol consumption. We don't get people drunk. That's obviously goes with our ABC license. We don't overserve people. We cut people off when we feel we've had too much. But I think we'll all agree, if we go to dinner and have a martini, you're not drunk, but maybe your decision is somewhat, you're not as sharp as you were before you had the martini. And this just gives people an hour, and it doesn't create a sense of panic. It literally gives them the time to get their together and just make a solid decision. Call their friend who might be in the neighborhood. Hey, I can't get an Uber. They're super expensive. Can you come pick me up? And it's the same thing with the police calls. The 33 calls for theft is something we wear with a badge of honor. This city has a huge problem with pickpockets. And Commissioner Hang, I saw you there. They actually had a special meeting with the Public Safety Commission on how to address this. And I went there and I spoke on behalf of HART. This is an organized crime ring. These people work in groups of 5. They ship the phone, they send the phones to a central location and ship them to Colombia or Shenzhen, China, unlock the phones and resell them as new. So this is a plague on our city, and we catch these people, and every single time we catch them, we call it in. If you remove that 33 calls for theft from our list of calls for service, we actually have less than Rage had. And I think it's fair to say that we're a busier establishment than Rage was. So that's something I want to address, and something, frankly, we're very proud of. And we will continue to call in thieves because we don't want them in our city.
I must commend your staff for their due diligence in keeping an eye out to catch thefts, because that was a good article that was written about yours.
Thank you. The other thing we've done with the theft, we have a unique ability at HART because we do have 2 floors. The one thing we noticed with the thieves is when somebody catches them or realizes, they blend into the crowd very effectively. So what we've actually done is implemented 2 extra guards that survey on the top level and have like a green laser pointer. And if they see a thief or they get a report of a thief, they look for them, and when they catch them, they shine the green laser pointer on them and follow them throughout the club so they can't escape into the crowd. So we do put a lot of thought into the customer experience. We named the club Heart for a reason. It's about, being the heart of the community, so that's why we're here, trying to provide a better service for our community and our city.
Thank you.
Okay, wait, I'd like to ask, I know currently you've had 12 special event licenses to stay open. So then you have some experience with closing the front patio. Can I ask, what's the protocol for doing that, and how long generally does it take?
We usually have it actually closed by 1:45. We do a little bit early. And it's actually pretty easy. We just have our hosts, usually, honestly, I try to use drag queens for anything that doesn't require security because people listen to drag queens. You don't want to mess with a drag queen. And we literally have the drag queens go out to the patio and say, hey guys, we're open for a little bit longer, grab a water, we're finishing up, if you can head into the venue. We don't want to have security push people. Again, we don't want to create, this is all about providing a nice service for our customers, not pushing them around. So we have the drag queens go out about 1:30 and be like, all right, party's moving inside, come on. And we've never had an issue with it. It actually runs really smoothly. We have our garage doors shut by 1:45, and no sound. You can stand right in front of that club. You really hear barely anything. We got a sound system called Void 2.0, which is state-of-the-art sound system. I lost a lot of hair by paying for it. But it's what it does, the reason why it's called Void is it takes the sound and splits it into hundreds of molecules. So the best way to explain it is one person screaming in your face is really loud, but if everybody in this room hummed at the same time, it would actually be a louder sound, but a much more pleasing sound, and it wouldn't travel outside this room. So that's what Void does, is it takes a loud sound, splits it up into hundreds of molecules, and sends it out in a different wavelength. So the sound that you hear that travels, the bass and stuff, they call it dirty sound, because it's the difference between one person screaming versus everybody making a quieter sound. It fills the room or fills the void, but it doesn't create the disturbance. And that's why we invested in that.
Okay, wait, I've got one last question. And then, again, because currently you're doing this, how, I guess, the number of security, I know the city has a request. Does it match what you're currently doing?
No, we use more. So I think we always plan for a possible no-show or somebody, obviously it happens. So we usually will staff usually around 2 more than what is required in case we have a no-show or something like that.
Okay, and if this is granted, will you continue that?
Of course.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ng. Is there any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time?
Yes, Chair, actually, we have Genevieve Morrill, who's requesting to speak at this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners, Chair, and Genevieve Morrill, President and CEO of the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I think what we need to do with the 4 a.m. is really flip it on its head and look at how does 4 a.m. make our community safer, not more unsafe. Every time people hear 4 a.m., there's these alarm bells that go off, right? And I have to remind everyone that this city council signed on twice to Senator Wiener's bill to allow West Hollywood to go to 4 a.m., to have that choice, okay? We have 2 huge commercial districts. And so when we look at something like this list of, calls for service, it's keeping our community safe. Our bar is calling for service to keep us safe. It's having a disturbance. And if you look at 2018 and 19, I find those much more egregious than the fact that they stopped theft, organized crime ring operations and called the sheriffs to stop, something that the sheriffs have been challenged and our whole community has been challenged with for a long time. So I'd like us to look at it differently. When I spoke to the sheriffs, when the first bill came out of 4 a.m., the captain said to me, he said, this will help stagger bars to leave at different times so that we have an opportunity to have people leave in an orderly manner and not all at once, as Paul said. And I'm really glad Paul talked about how proud they were about busting those sting operations. And when we start talking about public service, which is our sheriffs who are on retainer with this city, and start talking about charging businesses, We are keeping our community unsafe by doing that. Because you start charging commercial businesses, I know you don't charge residents for calls, right? But if you start charging businesses for service, they're not going to call for service when we need it, when this community needs it to keep their patrons safe. So I really beg you to kind of look at this a little differently of how 4 a.m. helps. They're not selling, right? They're not doing this to make more money. They're doing this to sort of take a moment, regroup, a lot of the challenges that they have. So I want to just remind on the bill that we've tried to get passed 3 times now, and it's because people are so afraid. And we look at Chicago and New York and other cities around the world where they have commercial entertainment hubs that also coexist in dense residential and commercial areas. They survive. And we've had businesses that have 4 a.m. and the sky hasn't fallen, okay? We have had 4 a.m. for Kitchen 24, which serves alcohol, Mickey's, many different businesses. And so I really want us to kind of step back a minute and kind of look at 4 a.m. as how it keeps us safe and not unsafe. And I really hope that you approve this business for at least for their weekend hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. Next speaker is Lad Jackson. If you can please come up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Lad Jackson. I'm a neighbor who lives on Hilldale for 20 years now. We have problems every weekend up the yin yang. I know specifically there's been several from Hart, and I'm not blaming you guys because I think you guys do a very good job. But we have massive problems in front of our house.
Can I ask you to speak into the speaker so that we can all hear you?
We've had to call the sheriff several times just last year. We have break-ins. I have tons and tons of... We find purses in our front yard all the time because they steal from all the places and then they throw it in our hedge. We have a huge hedge on Hilldale, so we see this all the time. We have a lot of problems between 2 and 3:30 as it is, and now you want us to have more issues between 4 and 5:30 on Saturday and Sunday. I guess. I mean, I've had to call the sheriff's department 3 or 4 times over the last year and a half, 2 years. Crime has spiked real heavily, and this is not a blame on Strictly Hart, and I'm not saying that at all, but in the last 2 years, we've seen it skyrocket, absolutely skyrocket in our neighborhoods. And it's not just me, it's all of our neighbors in the Norma Triangle heavily because we're right next to Hart, and we're next to Jim Bar, and we're next to the rest of them. So I've seen huge problems, and it's just been a pain. And maybe there are issues. Maybe it is decompression till 4 o'clock in the morning. That's great. But we have to tow constantly in front of our house every weekend as it is. We have thefts in front of our house. My car's been broken into over and over and over. I'm not saying it's all Hart. It's not. And I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to be some old man who's grumpy trying to kick you off my front lawn. That's not my point. But me and the neighbors have had so many issues, or the neighbors and I, pardon me, have had so many issues that when I saw this in addition to everything, it's like we already have problems from 2 to 3:30, and I've called the sheriffs, and now you want me to have problems from 4 to 5:30 in the morning. You guys do what you want, but the neighbors aren't happy at all. And we've seen people harass our wonderful ambassadors now heavily between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning that are out there. They're trying, but they get harassed really heavily. Anyway. The neighbors aren't happy as it is, and because Hart's right next to where we live, we see it come up there. I'm not blaming them only. That's not my point. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lad. Chair, that's the last public speaker that we have in chambers, and I know Jessica has one telephone number on Zoom to see whether or not they're willing to speak at this time.
So I have number 9751. If you'd like to speak regarding this matter, please unmute yourself by pressing star 6. That's the only caller. So we'll give it a minute because I know that sometimes. Okay, so I guess we do not have any speakers. The person at 9751 does not wish to speak regarding this item.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to make any final comments? You're good? Okay. All right. I will now close public comment portion of the hearing. You do? Okay. Then I'll keep it open for another minute.
By the way, I was not supposed to do this. They were like, my partners were like, Paul, stay quiet. Don't you talk too much, but here I am. I'm a promoter. What can I say? No, the final thing I want to say is I understand, obviously, the complexities of this. And very often in nightclubs, you know, they can be vilified to an extent because everything looks bad when you see it, theft and this and that. And I think it's very easy to go there because it's a natural gut reaction to, you know, 2 o'clock to 4. What's going to happen between 2 and 4 in the morning? They're going to go crazy. We're usually done and closed by 3:30. We don't ever stay open right till 4. We really, truly give people a chance to leave. And I think we see this with our community. It's very, you're seeing this in other cities. It's very easy to say you know what happens at a drag show when you haven't been to a drag show. It's very easy to say you know what happens at a club between 2 and 4 in the morning when some people haven't been at a club from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, I'm an open book. I've said since day one, you know, I'm not asking anybody to come out till 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm happy to give somebody my cell phone number to FaceTime me. I'm an open book. If you want me to show you, if you want to FaceTime me, and I can show you how we run our line, how we run our business. You know, set your alarm for 2:30 in the morning. I'm happy to show how we do it. But this is really about us doing what we think is right for the community, and I wanted to express that that's really why we're here and what this is all about. Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you have one final question, Commissioner.
Yeah. Can I ask then if you're saying that generally you're clear by 3:30, why is 4 o'clock the target time?
I think it's kind of how the permits work, I believe. But, you know, it just gives us that buffer to, again, at 3:30 music off, it gives us 10, 15 minutes to have people leave. So it just gives us a buffer. Again, the one thing we don't want to do is create any sense of chaos. So yeah, that's the main reason. It just gave us that extra 2 hours, which gives us more than enough time to kind of plan things out and let people kind of finish their night.
Okay, a question? Okay, final question.
Currently, you guys operate extended hours by special permission. Is that the term? Or yeah. So what does it entail? How often do you have to reapply to get
Every
that?
week.
Every week.
Every week, and we pay the fee, and we also pay for the co-compliance officer, Jason, who I know very, very well now, to stand outside the club to supervise.
And what's the process for the city to whether approve it or not for each week?
So I'd like to make a clarification. It is 4 o'clock in the morning because that's what the business requested. As I've mentioned before, they wanted to be open until 7 days a week until 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, regarding the special event permit, the venue would have to, needs to complete an application. We need to review as far as the complaints that we received through the venue, why do they want to do it, and then based on that criteria, we'll go ahead and approve and issue the special event permit with conditions imposed on the business.
Were there any instances where it was not approved?
No.
So you only look at the complaints, and what does it have to? What has to happen for the city to deny?
So, for example, if they are not abiding by the conditions that we established, if, for example, we find that they did something that's a major event happened at the venue, then that's something for us to reconsider and looking at the special event permit, and then for future possibly deny the special event permit.
And is there a process where it can be not weekly, but say bi-weekly or a monthly?
The special event permit?
Yeah.
The special event permit per code, the maximum time is for 3 consecutive days. This is what the reasons why they have to apply it every weekend. They're only allowed 12 per year in a 12-month period, which is a calendar year.
And so they already utilized all 12?
They're about to use all of them, yes.
Which we did because we wanted proof of.
Meaning, in how many weeks they would?
So far, I believe the last weekend would have been, I'm going to have to look at the calendar to see the number, but I want to say they're probably numbered.
So if it's
I need to look at it.
From beginning of January, that's when you start counting, right? So,
correct.
So that would give them like around 3 months.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Thank you.
This is questions for the applicant, not for staff. If you have staff, we can still address that when we close public comment.
One more question, and I'm
Okay.
curious, Paul, it's Paul?
Yeah.
Then did you originally request it to be 365, like every single day?
I honestly, to be honest, don't recall doing that. So I think, frankly, when we hired the firm to request it for us, they just automatically submitted it that way. I mean, there's nobody going out Monday or Tuesday, and if they are, I don't want them at my club, so. Yeah, this is for Friday, and sometimes it's misleading because it says Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, this is Friday night and Saturday night because yeah, so even Sunday was not something that we requested or really is important to us. It's Friday and Saturday where West Hollywood is particularly busy during those hours, and there's a lot of congestion and a lot of people on the street.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. I will now close the public comment portion of this hearing.
Chair Bullion, may I add something?
Yes.
I'd like to just make a notation for to go into the record that as of 2:15 p.m. today, city staff has received 80 public comments regarding this item, which 17 is support of this item and 63 in opposition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now close the public comment portion of this hearing and bring the matter back to the commission for deliberation. We've closed the public comment. So, okay, so now's the time for any commissioners to have their comments. Also, if you have any other follow-up questions to staff, you can do that as well. Commissioner Lowe?
Jessica, I'm curious, was part of the criteria involved in surveying complaints from the neighborhood?
It was for the establishment. Any noise complaints that we received regarding the establishment, the operations of the establishment?
No, so let me be a little bit more nuanced about my question. When you were selecting your criteria for recommending this, the extended hours, was part of the criteria involving surveying complaints by the neighborhood?
Well, part of the complaints that we receive goes into our code enforcement database, and that's part of it that we check to see any complaints regarding that particular venue.
And how many complaints did you guys receive, or did you survey?
For this particular business, we received 0 since they started their operation in January of 2022.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because a lot of the public comments we got through emails were template emails from people in the neighborhood, but it's surprising that if there was actually complaints for the business over the last several months, why wasn't anything called in? And there was nothing at that time. So I noticed that some of the letters were thinking that the business would be open until 4 o'clock to serve alcohol, and they were complaining about the state laws. I'm like, this is not what's up for discussion tonight. It's just to extend their business hours till 4 a.m. without alcohol. So I think there was some confusion for that. Definitely one thing that I noticed. Also, just wanted to bring that up with the patio being closed, and like Genevieve said too, having staggered closings of bars, I think is a positive thing. I think it's going to create more of a safe environment outside on the streets where there's not so many people forced to be out there all at once. People will be out there longer. It'll be quieter, I believe, because not everyone is going to be trying to get into their cars or walking and leaving at the same time, that it's going to be a little bit better for the neighbors, I hope. I mean, just Adolfo being able to give out his cell phone, I think that's pretty amazing for him to do that. It really shows the leadership that is at heart and how serious they do take it. And if there is issues, what they will be willing to do to resolve that. So I was impressed by that. I'm ready to approve the resolution. So.
Commissioners, if I may briefly speak, I understand that public comments has closed, but there is an individual who wants to speak on the phone, and I think it would be appropriate to give him the opportunity to speak before we proceed.
Okay, so With our attorney's recommendation, I'll reopen the public hearing for one more public comment.
Go ahead. Please state your name and address.
Yes, thank you, because I was wondering why the commissioner cut off the public comment. I've been waiting patiently for an hour and a half. So please be aware of that, Commissioner.
Please proceed with your public comment, sir.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to add to certain people that were in person, but I was just a little perturbed. So thank you again for that person to open up the line. But be aware of that. So I'm really disgusted. So on the point, you know, being a resident, I don't normally go to the clubs often. However, you have seen people with hit and runs, intoxicated and impaired driving. I get the person who is representing the club. Genevieve Morale has her interest with, you know, the Chamber of Commerce. But you have to be aware of those people on foot using public transportation. We're confronted by people in the community, whether you're going out and about or doing whatever, or going from another establishment. Art, those, Mickey's, they're very centered with having a high-density population at their clubs. And people are pre-game. They're going to the club where they're already taking ecstasy, they've already drank alcohol, they bar hop, and then they end up in an establishment and leave. I've seen so many people that have been, you know, fainted on the ground, walking by. They're available for being raped or possibly having some kind of confrontation or fights. That's, you know, having theft, which is an issue and a problem, that's besides the point of the violent actions. If you see a video, not an establishment of Heart, and I want to specify that, there were chairs thrown out, you know, thrown at each other. If it wasn't for WehoVille and Weho Times, we would not know, the residents would not know the interactions at businesses and people who become belligerent, argumentative, and violent when they consume alcohol because they cannot control their own behavior. And I don't have a feeling that Heart and other establishments can do that because we're all human. People can't monitor. They're adults. They don't know what they're doing inside their home or outside on the street and then going to a club, and it's a liability. So they're throwing chairs. They're throwing it at people, and then it's a gang fight. Can you believe a gay gang fight that's occurring between people because you spoke words or you basically insulted them, or, you know, they have to have some bravado. And guess what happens? It's the bystanders who pay the consequence for that. And I'm just disgusted to know that, hey, establishments can do what they can, but what about those who want to live in the community, want to have peace of mind? I'm not a homeowner, I'm a renter, but I'd like to know that I'm not going to be collateral damage. I can walk.
Thank you for your comment. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will reclose public comment and go back to deliberations with our commission. Commissioner Heng.
Can I ask staff a question?
Yes.
I have a question for staff, if possible. If this license is it granted in perpetuity, or can we revisit this in 12 to 24 months? And I'm not talking about the period that's in the resolution that would bring it back to the commission within 6 months. I'm talking about a perpetuity or a final revisitation.
Yeah, so Commissioner, we did recommend in the resolution to bring this item back before the Business License Commission for review. Generally, extended hours business licenses are approved for a period of 1 year, and then renewed on a 1 year basis thereafter. Of course, the city staff, if they are observing or coming across there being issues, they can certainly bring it back before the Business License Commission earlier rather than later. But the commission certainly has the will to be able to incorporate certain check-ins. If the 6 month as proposed going before the commission, and obviously there could be another 6 month check-in after that if it is the will of the commission, but that would have to be discussed amongst the commission and approved by the majority of the commission at each of those instances. We simply just propose the first 6 months and then giving the commission the ability to make a decision moving forward.
Thank you. I just wanted to voice that I am at a crosshairs with this. I've heard many, many, many complaints from residents in the Norman Triangle, from residents in the within the city that are concerned with the after-hours extension for this establishment. I do understand Mr. Nichols' point of view that if it is open, it would be a staggered exit from West Hollywood for the masses, but I just wanted to put on the record that I do hear our citizens' complaints. I do hear their concerns with the extension of the hours for this business. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Yusupov and then Commissioner Saltzman.
I wanted to ask staff first. So once something like this is granted, does it go with the land? In other words, if there is another business after Hart, would they get the same rate?
No, it goes with the business. So if Hart were to close, it goes away. And if there's a new business, the new business would have to apply.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask, would it be possible to get, so since the stats compared to the before November, after November were not split up by time, and then also this business being his only second nightclub that would get such extended hours wasn't directly compared to the initial one, would that be possible to have be done before we make the decision? Maybe if we table this or put it on the next.
Yeah, that is possible, yes.
Okay. And then I wanted to also comment, we did get extensive opposition. I did hear a lot from the residents opposing this, and it might be possibly because of some misconception, which means maybe the public needs to be educated a little better if that's the reason here, but we cannot just simply ignore that opposition. It would be really not prudent for the commission to ignore such a I would say overwhelming opposition from the neighborhood and the city residents. Plus, it looks like the city did not look into some of the stats that are vital for commission to consider before making such decision. So I personally consider that we are not ready to make the decision, or we don't have enough information to make the decision. And looks like the public is definitely not ready to make the decision. And lastly, for the staggered leaving, I think on the other hand, we have actually a couple of businesses in the neighborhood. And if I remember correctly, we did allow a pizza place, I think, to be extended, to be open for extended hours. So people could easily walk to a neighborhood eating place if they don't want to pay higher Uber fees, or they don't want to leave.
That was on Sunset Boulevard. This is Santa Monica.
But I think there's one on Santa Monica as well.
But the one that we approved was for Sunset, yeah, Prince Street.
Okay, well, maybe. But if the Kitchen 24 is open, that's another place also in Santa Monica. So I personally feel we don't have enough information to compare, and if it makes it any easier for the business, maybe they can get a little more than 12 extended hours permits for time being until at least our next meeting, when we will have that in additional information to make the decision. That would be my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Saltzman, then Commissioner Lowe.
Thank you. I have a question and then a comment. I just want to confirm I'm understanding correctly that since the beginning of this calendar year, Hart has been operating after hours on the weekends, essentially every weekend. Is that correct? And during that time, there have not been any noise complaints from the neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct. Code enforcement has not received any complaints regarding the extended operations.
Thank you. So my comments are, I came this evening expecting to be opposed to this based on the number of communications we'd received from the neighborhood. And I live in the Norman Triangle. I've heard from a number of people directly opposed to it. But after listening to everything that's happened this evening, I agree with Commissioner Vulan being willing to approve this for a number of reasons. One, the applicant has satisfied the conditions in the municipal code, which seems to me to suggest that I'm not sure we have the discretion actually to oppose it. Second, most important to me, there will be nothing outdoors. The garage doors will be closed, and there'll be a security guard to enforce that. Third, the comments about the benefits of closing later, spreading out the leaving, I think makes some sense and is certainly worth paying attention to as we go forward. Fourth, we're going to see this again in 6 months, so that if there are issues, we will certainly know about them. And then finally, the point I made with my question, that it's actually been operating this way for 2.5 months, and there haven't been complaints. So I end up agreeing with you, Chair Vulan, that we should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowe?
Yeah. Yeah, this seems like a very divisive topic for some reason. And I do agree with Commissioner Posfa about the fact that there seems to be a lot of unclarity about the staff's analysis. I feel like there hasn't been enough, more thorough, because, for example, Abby hasn't required extended hours as well. You know, there's so many other reasons that I think we need to kind of consider other options out there and look at Mickey's and compare their statistics as well. I don't think we're in a hurry to make this decision, like Commissioner Salzman said. I mean, if it's going to come back in 6 months, I don't think it's going to be a compelling reason, and it's not going to stop business as usual for Hart. Yeah, I just don't feel compelled to make a decision immediately. It doesn't feel like there's an exigency around this. And I've heard a lot of complaints now for all the neighborhoods. I also live in Hilda, but I live on the Sunset side. So I do appreciate when neighbors speak up.
Thank you. One comment. Honestly, I would be a little bit more hesitant to voice my, approval of this resolution after hearing, and not hearing, but seeing so many of the comments that came in through public comment, through the emails. We definitely want to listen to our residents, right? However, Hart has already been operating till 4 a.m. since November, beginning of November. So before the beginning of the year, and there haven't been any complaints. I mean, to me, they've gone through their trial period. That let them stay open till 4 a.m. I'm 100% for that. One question for the staff, which I'm not clear on. So we can make a motion to adopt the resolution as is. Does that include your I think you had 9 recommendations, or is that a separate thing that we would need to discuss?
It would be the conditions in the resolution that it was attached to the staff report as attachment A.
Okay. So that's for checking back in 6 months, for the 6 security guards, all of those different things that they recommended. That would come with not opening the outside and so on. Just, I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Yeah.
So, Jessica, I actually counted 21 emails in favor. My count was a little bit different, so I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but before I came tonight, I counted 55 in opposition and 21 in favor. And I'd like to address the comment that, yes, absolutely, we want to honor the residents. I feel very fortunate that I don't live next to a club, but I do think it makes sense that if people stagger out, there isn't the craziness of being in the street and the harshness of a bright light at 2 a.m. Something that I noticed in the 55 that I counted comments in opposition, many of them form letter, the comment was made that because we have fewer sheriffs, I want to ask staff if I know we've only cut 2, does that have anything to do with nightlife? I mean, do we know if the 2 could be daytime sheriffs? I'm not sure, so I'm wondering if you can answer that.
Yeah, so Commissioner Ang, so in terms of our special teams that city pays extra for, and those teams are supervised currently by Sergeant Duran, and so you have our entertainment policing team, which generally obviously operates in the evening, weekend hours. So that team remains intact, no differently than our cops team that operates during the day. So the reduction in deputies really is associated with patrol. Yeah. So
that was a really great question, because I would say probably 50 of the letters in opposition said, because we're cutting sheriffs, why would you extend hours of anybody?
Yeah,
and that answers that. So
Okay, and then when, again, I know that this has already been said, I want to make sure that I'm absolutely clear on this. When we say that we'll revisit in 6 months, if we were to approve tonight and they come back in 6 months, we could revoke at that time?
That is something, and I'll defer to our city attorney, Grace, as well, in terms of that. But I don't know if there is. I know there's definitely a check-in, but Deputy City Attorney, I don't know if we would need to add language in there that would give the commission the capability of doing that. But it would essentially get brought before the commission. So my understanding is they would potentially have the ability to do that.
Yes, there potentially could be the ability to revoke that, and then there's a municipal code that sets forth the grounds for revocation, but it would have to be a notice hearing and all of that. So we can work with staff to get that procedure done and add language and revise the resolution to allow for that.
thank you. Commissioner Saltzman.
Just a follow-up question on that. So the conditions for revocation, can you give us a sense of what those are? Are those different from the conditions we look at tonight?
Yes, so the grounds for revocation is in Municipal Code 5.52.050. And would you like me to read?
Yes, please.
That? Oh, sure. So in addition to the grounds for revocation set forth in Section 508.190, the Commission may revoke a business license for an extended hour business if it finds that the licensee, licensee's employees, agents, or manager have provided insufficient parking for its patrons, thus causing cruising on neighborhood streets, looking for parking, and causing other traffic-related noise and disturbances between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. 2, that the licensee, licensee's employees, agents, or manager have failed to maintain the business in a neat and clean condition. 3, that the licensee, licensee's employees, agents, or manager have allowed or failed to prevent its business patrons to engage in criminal or unlawful activity on or immediately adjacent to the business premises. And 4, that the licensee, licensee's employees, agents, or manager have permitted or failed to discourage loitering in and immediately adjacent to the business premises.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion from anyone to approve this item?
I move we approve this item as recommended by staff.
Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ng. And can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Heng?
Yes.
Commissioner Heng?
Please come back to me.
Are you abstaining, or what do you mean by please come back to you? You're in the sequence of...
I want to see what the will of the commission is.
Okay. Commissioner Lowe?
No. Nay.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Yusupov?
No.
Chair Volin?
Yes.
Commissioner Heng?
No.
The item's not approved. I'm sorry. We have a 3-3, excuse me.
Okay. Well, moving on to...
Is there another motion on the floor? Since the item obviously didn't pass because you had a 3-3 vote and
Sure.
we have one absent. So, Deputy City Attorney, is there anything that you would want to?
Would make a motion.
Right, is it a disapproval, or is there a different motion to maybe bring it back, as some of the commissioners may have discussed?
I would make a motion. Unless, Commissioner, you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'd make a motion to bring it back to the commission once we have those additional information that was requested, especially comparing this to the existing nightclub and also breaking down the number of incidents by timeline by before November when the extended license was granted. And lastly, maybe have an accurate number of complaints and opposition and supporting letters. Thank you.
And Commissioner Yusupov, so in terms of looking at other extended hours, right, businesses, that's part of the motion, right? And the first one that you mentioned,
in
right?
particular to another light, I think there was one nightclub that's comparable to this one, so
got it.
Comparing them and also comparing this heart before November and after November. So that would be one of the things, yeah.
Got it. Is there a
I'd like to second that
to that motion? So,
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Eng?
Aye.
Commissioner Hang?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Saltzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Yes.
Chair Volan?
Aye.
The item passes.
Okay, so is this going to be something that will come next month or once it's ready? Like, we can bring this back at any time, right?
Staff is going to do everything they can to get the information and hopefully be able to place it on the agenda next month. If not, then it would go on the following month. But we'll do everything we can to try to put it on as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Item number 8, unfinished business. There's none. Item 9, new business. There's none. Items from staff. Is there an update provided by the Neighborhood Business Safety Manager?
Thank you, Chair Volan. Just a couple of items for the commission. Last night, in front of the City Council, we did have a proposed street performer ordinance that we brought for consideration to the council. That item was discussed, and we are to return back to the council with some additional information that they requested. So we'll be working with staff on that item. Secondly, we have anticipated for the month of April that Aeon Botanica, which is a proposed cannabis use, is a change of ownership. That item is anticipated to come to the commission in April, so staff is working on that. We have received the application. And also, I don't know if you received the email dated March 2nd for the Artists and Icon event. It's a conversation with Barbara Bain here in this council chambers on March 16th at 7 p.m. Sounds like an interesting item, and just wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of that. I don't know if Director Rivas or Jessica have any additional comments that you'd like to share with the group. I promise I'll have more the longer I'm here. I will. We're gathering quite a bit of information in my time, so these are the items that we have at this time for the commission.
And just to add to Vito's updates is I just want to emphasize and encourage all the commissioners, as well as any extension of the commissioners. We have our active shooter training. I believe some of the commissioners that have already signed up, and that's going to be held this Saturday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. So please, if you haven't already signed up or you're considering it, send an email to safety@weho.org or reach out to myself, and I could forward it on over to the team member, and hope to see you all this Saturday. And then following the active shooter training, we have a dialogue with the deputy event that is occurring at Dialogue Cafe off of Holloway. And so for those that are interested in that's going to be from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And I believe Sheriff Luna will also be in attendance, along with our West Hollywood Sheriff Station captain and other staff from our West Hollywood Sheriff Station.
Very good. All right. Item number 11, public comment. Our final public comment, final chance. Is there anyone online who would like to speak?
Hello, phone number ending in 9751. If you wish to speak at this time during public comment, if you can press *6 to unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes?
Yes, would you like to speak as part of public comment?
No, I already spoke, so thank you so much. It was about the Heart and Eye Cup, so thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you so much. No further public comments.
All right, thank you. And item number 12, items for commissioners. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share or speak on? Oh. You can go first. All right, Commissioner Yusupov.
I wanted to actually, there was on Saturday, there was an event for something to do with the protection of catalytic converters, right? I wanted to actually commend the city and thank for such an event. I think a lot of people don't realize that that could be an extra protection that could be done to their cars. So that's, I think, given the endemic nature of that type of crime, I think that was a really good event. And maybe if there's a demand, there could be some more. I'm assuming people even coming from outside the city, are they being honored as well for that service, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Commissioner Yusupov. We had 72 actually participants, and our West Hollywood Sheriff Station actually put on that event and did a great job. They did partner with Los Angeles Police Department as well as Beverly Hills Police Department, so it was extremely successful, and we are planning on coordinating another event with the West Hollywood Sheriff Station.
Great, yeah, that was a great thing. And I also wanted to, as Chair Woolen commented, like, for example, there was just an item before us where we had so much opposition, written, verbal, emails, and I think a lot of it probably there were some members of our neighborhoods that were misinformed or they didn't know exactly what's going on, and they were maybe afraid of things that were not there. I don't know what we as a commission can do to make sure that the residents are informed a little better about the processes and what's before us or any other commission or the city council. But I think that if we as a commission or the city as city staff can come up with some ideas how residents can be informed about particular issue, like let's say some contentious item coming up before the commission, and before just putting out the public notice saying just this is what's going to be decided on, maybe there could be some additional information that would help the public that, that this is what's happening. Like I personally saw, in particular to this item, some of the people in the neighborhoods, they thought, oh, once this is extended, that's going to go forever, even if the Heart goes out of business, and it's going to go with the land and things like that. So which turns out are not accurate. So I think that would probably help. And then also, truly, like what's happening as stats-wise, like how did it change? Like right now, looking at the presentation, it just looked like, oh, once the Heart took over, the crime just went ballistic, like almost by a 50% increase. So things like that, I think if there is a way to keep more information to the residents, so we as a commission, if we know more, it doesn't look like we're ignoring the public opinion. So that would be my other comment. But thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Saltzman.
Yes, I just wanted to say I believe this is my last meeting on this commission. And I wanted to thank the staff for their support and their help while I served on the commission, and thank my colleagues on the commission for their support and help while I served on the commission. I enjoyed it and wish you, those of you who are staying, the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowe.
Yes, I believe this is my last meeting as well, so I do want to express my gratitude to the staff. It's been really great tenure to be here and to have served the city on so many different topics and so many different reasons. And so, and I also appreciate seeing the changing of guards, and I really appreciate each and every one of the commissioners here, and really appreciated working with all of you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. And Commissioner Saltzman, thank you for being a mentor to me when I first came onto this commission, and for being a really, really great chair and a good role model. Commissioner Lowe, it's been wonderful working with you. I hope this isn't my last meeting, but it'll be up to City Council, I guess, to see what happens next. Commissioner Hang.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Lowe and Commissioner Saltzman for their service to the city. I wish I had been able to learn more from you guys through osmosis, but unfortunately, I wasn't given that opportunity. So thank you for your service. I just had a couple of things. With regards to tonight's deliberation, I look forward to getting this establishment back on the agenda. I just couldn't, in good conscience, vote for something without the entirety of all the information. And that has to speak to what Commissioner Yusupov was saying. In terms of breakdown of statistics, I just couldn't, in good conscience, make a vote without all of the decision, and especially with input from our residents as well. But I do look forward to receiving this item again for a second deliberation. I don't think it should be an issue with all the information at hand. At least there would be more transparency for the public if they had more information as well. And lastly, just one item. At the July 12th Business License Commission meeting, the Commission had received a list of complaints of cannabis businesses for the period of July 2021 through June 2022. In addition, that same night, a motion was passed, which was initiated by Chair Matos and seconded by Vice Chair Eisenberg, to receive Commission quarterly reports of enforcement outcomes of all future inspections of cannabis businesses. I don't think we've gotten any of those for a while, so I just wanted to maybe nudge staff to maybe give us one, just to recap, because there was nothing in the agenda tonight about the what was discussed earlier in the first public hearing. So, thank you.
Yeah, and Commissioner Hang, we'll make sure to make note of that and start working on that report.
Commissioner Ng, I know you have something to say.
Yeah, I will echo the thanks and the goodbye to Commissioner Saltzman and Commissioner Lowe, and I'll say that actually none of us really know if we'll be back, so there you go. In terms of this evening's hearing, I'd like to actually echo what Commissioner Saltzman said. I was expecting to be a no. And hearing the presentation by the owner and knowing that we would revisit in 6 months is what changed my mind. I do really stress that we take into consideration how the residents feel, and obviously that's something that weighs very heavily with us.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, we will move to item 13, which is adjournment. The West Hollywood Business License Commission will adjourn to its next regular meeting, which will be on Tuesday, April 4th, 2003 at 6 p.m. here in West Hollywood at the Public Meeting Room, Council Chambers, 625 North San Vicente Boulevard, West Hollywood, California, 90069.